The views expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent the views of this station or its management.
Real People, Real Life is brought to you by these fine sponsors.
Welcome to another edition of Real People, Real Life from right here in Wichita, Kansas, America. And I'm very honored and proud, as we all are, all of our hosts, to have a former Kansas police officer, Pat Bucard, with us today. Pat, thank you for joining us. And I just want to say something real quick. You know, I don't think you have to look very far these days, whether it's your local newspaper or network TV stations or national news. There's a lot going on in the news that somehow is being related to different, police officers and situations. And I want everybody to know right off the bat, we're not here to discuss any specific ongoing situations. The reason we wanted to bring you in is because you are a former Kansas police officer, and I just want you to kind of walk us through what it's like, and so then we're going to get into some of your personal experiences.
Sure, thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Pat.
If you're talking about specifically police work, is that what we're talking about? I completed 15 years of service as a Kansas police officer, and I can tell you every day, it's a hard job. It's a hard line of work, and my opinion is you have to be chosen for it.
Right.
A lot of people think they can do it.
Right.
They watch TV, they watch CSI, they watch, detective shows and everything,
Right.
and they think they can do it, which is interesting because as a kid, I watched the Rockford Files,
Yeah.
Hawaii Five-0,
I
and
like that.
my hero were McGarrett, Steve
Yeah.
McGarrett on Hawaii Five-0, and then James Garner was a private investigator. So for me, I didn't want to be a police officer as a kid. I wanted to be an investigator.
Right.
And I was privileged to live in an outside area where there's a lot of woods, and I read a lot. I have a brother that I'm very close to, an identical twin brother, and we were always reading books, comic books and things, and I was completely believed in the superhero, the supervillain concept, and I didn't identify with superpower type people. I was
Right.
reading Sherlock Holmes and Batman detective comics. Batman was a detective, and I saw his belt, and I built all that stuff as a kid, lockpick set, mini handcuffs, mini flashlight, and all that. And now,
Wow.
as a consultant, after doing 15 years and after doing time overseas, I know how to pick locks. I know how to use tactical flashlights. I know how to shoot. I know how to do things. I know how to take care of myself physically, and I always wanted to do that. So I pushed myself as a kid all that time to just be an investigator.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily the police, but as I began getting older, that was the avenue that I could only think about to do that. So I applied, and 15 years after that, I've done a whole lot of different things in my career as a policeman, and I was recruited to go finally overseas to Afghanistan to do an investigation mission to work specifically with the Afghans. So I took my outside-the-box thinking method from the police, and I was successful as an officer, as a decorated officer. Controversial, though.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's, have I had days off? Yeah. I got a written reprimand for being too hard as a police trainer on recruits, if you can believe that. They said that I was too hard on them at a specific time, and I took a written reprimand for it.
Oh my goodness.
And I have a reputation of being kind of charismatic, but my heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
And to be a policeman, to be a cop, you got to have your heart. You got to be
Right.
all heart. And sometimes you got to remember that you have to have complete compassion for your fellow man, because at night, even in this city, I can assure you that officers are seeing the worst of society.
Absolutely. I
And
agree
every
100%.
person is better than their worst act that you see them. And then all times, I can tell you, police officers forget that. I've seen it happen in front of me.
Right.
And the difference, I guess, between myself and other officers that I've seen in my career is the difference between a really good cop and a fantastic cop. And this was told to me by an old street cop, is your compassion. And I never forgot that. So
There was something you shared with me. Why is the shield on the uniform in
I
that
ask these to
location?
police officers all the time. They don't
Did you
even
guys?
know.
Do you know? Does anybody know? First of all, why is the shield on a certain side of the uniform? Does anybody know?
Is it bulletproof?
Well, they wear bulletproof armor.
What was it to remind you of where your heart actually lies?
That's what
Oh,
they
it's
say.
to keep your heart.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Okay. Go ahead. Tell us.
But see, the thing is, like in different police departments, they have colors. They look the same. They have the same haircut. They have the same uniform. They have the same weapons. They have the same speech. They have the same hand signals. And that sounds like a group. It sounds like a gang, doesn't it?
It certainly
Well,
does.
yeah, it does.
Well,
And they have certain codes that
Right.
they follow. They have this and that, right?
Right.
So when I say that, everybody goes, oh. But their purpose, the reason why the badge was called the shield, is because that's where the centurion, the paladins that were administrators of justice of the community, held their swords. And back then, you trained with a sharp sword on the right and a shield on your left, and you fought as one impenetrable
yeah.
unit together
Correct.
for the same morals, for the same ethics. And the manual that they issued these warriors was called the Enchiridion. Nobody knows that.
Right.
The Enchiridion was a manual written by the great warriors, and it told them that how to conduct themselves at all times. Somewhere along the line, I don't know what happened,
I was
but
going to
I
say,
still believe
why
it.
do they not have that available to officers in training now?
You got to get those pearls of wisdom from good
old
older
school.
cops,
school
Yeah.
cops?
old school cops.
Got to be handed down almost like a father to a son.
It does, and I see that lacking.
Really?
I'm not going to say anything that I can't back up. I was a training officer for a large department here in Kansas. I was a remedial training officer. That means I got the police officers that were way up here that needed to be turned down a little bit. Then I got the ones that were way down here that needed some encouragement to
Step it up.
pass the program, because there's the academy and then there's a training program that you're paired with several different training officers. I was totally privileged in my career to have some really, really good old school training officers that were good cops.
Yeah.
And I was privileged to be put with, not all, but because sometimes you learn a lot from bad supervision. I call them seagull managers. They squawk and they fly in and they shit over everything. They make a lot of noise and flap their wings and feathers go everywhere, and then they fly away, and you're here holding the bag.
Right.
Now you
right.
can clean it up, right?
Yeah, you have to. Oh my gosh, what am I
Somebody's
gonna
got
do?
to clean up the mess.
Right, and I had a lot of those too, but most of the time, I had really good commanders, and I specifically remember one that said, "Listen, I was working a violent crimes type of assignment, gangs, violent crimes, narcotics. That's all we worked." He brought us in, and he said, "You are specifically picked for your expertise. You have to have earned your way to this unit, and we are recruiting great white sharks. We're not recruiting the land police officers. We're not recruiting traffic officers here. We're not recruiting street cops that just go to their calls for 10 hours a day and go home.
No, you worked the really seriously tough
Yeah,
stuff.
we're here for the great white sharks, and in between those sharks, there you got out of 10 great white sharks that should be there. There's probably 2 or 3 that earned it. I mean, the top 1%
Right.
type of that. And I was totally blessed to have commanders like that.
Yeah. And you were always that way too, though.
Yeah.
This is not my first time that I've interviewed Pat, so I've had an opportunity to spend a lot more time with you and go into more detail on some other things, and we're working on some things in the future where you'll have more time to do some things and get a little bit more into detail. But I do want everybody to understand that, yes, you are a former Kansas police officer, and then you did go to Iraq, and what happened, and then you got back.
I was recruited to go to Afghanistan to do
That's right,
assignments.
Afghanistan.
I came
Excuse
back.
me.
I got hit by an IED there. Had a critical event there and survived that. And then in Afghanistan, the counterinsurgency is what's going on, and they use improvised explosive devices or IEDs to blow us up to the ground. They put them in the trees. They put them in walls. They do all that stuff. And I was recruited to go over there and investigate our soldiers' murders there, because they need police officers that know gangs, that know violent crime, because the enemy is structured in certain ways. And I was recruited with a bunch of retired FBI agents that were over the age of 50, that some of them were left outside the wire and some of them didn't. So you get schooled real quick when you get in combat there about, after you tell me about 20 years being an FBI agent, 10 years you sat down and you were retired on duty, or you were a ROD.
Yeah.
I call them RODs. Hey, Rod. Hey, it's Larry. Okay.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what I'm talking about. Retired on duty. Okay.
I knew
after
that.
After all the talk about everything you did with the, let's say it's the FBI. Let's say I'm not going to name any names.
Yeah.
FBI or whatever agency you were with. Now it's talk time is over. Nobody cares who the president is at the time when you're getting shot at.
Mm-hmm.
All you care about is the man next to you.
Right.
And your priorities are switched.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then after that event, you come home and they say, Robin, I want you to act totally normal. Just like the policeman. You just worked a homicide or a child fatality.
Right.
How was your day today? And come home and act normal. So in defense of the officers, they have a lot to deal with on their plate, and they have to come home and make sense of it and everything like that. Which goes back to the incorrigiting, which goes back to the oath. If you're going to hold your hand up and swear an oath, it's not a promise. It's like a covenant you make. You swear to your higher power. You swear to the chief of police. You swear to the community that you're going to do everything on your honor to be objective and give your best every time, or else there's always barber college, like Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse. There's always barber college.
Exactly. We're gonna.
No barbers in the room, I hope.
No, we don't have any
No
barbers in the room.
disrespect,
Yeah, no disrespect.
I love my
We knew
barber.
this guy. I was gonna say you got a good one.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna have to take a break here in just a little bit, but when we come back, I want to get a little bit more into whatever specifics
Sure.
you want to get into. If you have any video feeds or photos or
Sure.
anything like that, if you can just kind of let us know so that we can, let our producers and everybody else work with us in the production of that in the next segment. And then, of course, we do so coming up on the second half today, we have John, known famously as our owner of the Carlos O'Kelly's. And how do you spell?
O'Kelly's.
I'm hungry. He's going to be here with us tonight in just a little bit. And he's
Did he
with
bring
the
food?
no.
I have to eat
And
there
he's here
tonight.
with the Yes Wichita group, and that's the folks that want us to vote yes to the proposed sales tax coming up here pretty quick in Wichita, Kansas. We'll be right back in just a minute. Real people, real life.
Real People, Real Life is brought to you by these fine sponsors.
At Trailer Town, we're all about selection, service, and safety. Trailer Town Selection, hundreds to choose from, small to large, lightweight aluminum to heavy-duty steel, all types, new and used. Trailer Town Service, the best in the Midwest, from wiring to axle repair. Trailer Town Safety, yes, we do Department of Transportation inspections. Trailer Town, trusted, family-owned, 301 West 53rd Street North.
Credit King Auto Sales is getting better all the time. We're doing it better. We're doing it better all the time.
Saving you money big time and saying thank you, Kansas, for making Credit King Auto Sales the #1 buy here, pay here dealer. #1 for sales, service selection, and customer satisfaction. Right now, our summer blowout sale is going on with, get this, 2 years of free gas. Only at Credit King Auto Sales at the King's Corner, 31st South and Broadway. GoCreditKing.com.
Hammond Liquor, home of the coldest beer in town and lowest prices store-wide, wants to remind you of very important savings days. Wine Day, Tuesdays get 20% off. Beer Day, Wednesdays get 10% off. Microbrews and imports. Open till 8 p.m. every Sunday. Hammond Liquor, West Kellogg and Tyler Road.
At Economy Motors, we know that everything costs more these days. Gas costs more, utilities cost more, groceries cost more. But what's one thing that will not cost you more? Buying your next vehicle with us. Everything we have is priced $12,995 or under. Bad credit, no worries. No crazy gimmicks and no bait and switch. We keep it real. Economy Motors, home of Easy Pay. We've got your back.
Don't worry, please, don't worry, 'cause at Economy Motors, we got your back.
Welcome back once again, Real People, Real Life, and we are honored again to say that we have Pat Picard with us, former Kansas Police Department, Kansas police officer, right? Okay, and now you're more of a consultant.
Yes.
Okay, I want you to take us into the nitty-gritty now of what a good police officer should do on an investigation situation, then what happens when they go to court.
Okay. Well, we talked earlier about how the officers get assigned to senior officers to train them, and they're just reinforcing the academic portion of the academy. The academy is approximately 6 months. So the officers are trained in not only constitutional law, they're trained in a lot of things. It's 6 months of just complete book work, and you're getting screamed at, and PT'd, which is, you need to be in shape.
Yeah.
So coming from that perspective, you are trained in the law and criminal law based upon the state and also the city where you work. There's city ordinances and there's state statutes. You're tested on that, and on top of that, you got to know policies and procedures of the department. Like, hey, listen, you can't shave. You have to have a mustache this big. You can't go past the vermilion of your lip. You got to have the uniform it's very structured.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have a handbook that you're responsible for city policies as a city employee. Let's say if you're a city cop.
Right.
Okay. So the officer goes, let's say, to I have worked child sex cases, the worst. Okay. Let's say you're an officer. You go to the portion of the academy where it says crime scene portion, and how you interview people, or how you're trained to interview and interrogate suspects,
Right.
let's say. So we got crime scene, interviewing kids, and interviewing suspects. Let's just keep it 3 things.
Okay.
In the last, since I started investigations in 2010 for private types,
Right.
I have numerous cases where the police, the detective.
No, I've heard you rephrase that.
Yeah, I mix the consonants around.
Yeah, I know.
Because if you have a child sex case and you don't set a toe into the crime scene, you are defective in some way. Not a detective that wears a shield,
Right.
that is sworn an oath to. I mean, if you're tired, don't come to work.
Right.
Okay. If you're sick, don't come to work. If you don't have the skills to work, what's worse than a murder case? A child sex case where there's a living
I would
victim.
say, right, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, a living victim that's going to
Exactly.
be. It goes
Traumatized
okay.
for the rest of their life.
And by the way, the suspect's innocent until proven guilty. So all of a sudden people get, oh my gosh, it's a child sex case, and everybody looks to the cop, everybody looks to the detective, everybody looks to the chief to direct this investigation for the community and also for the victims.
Right.
The victims. Okay. All right. So how many cases do you want where I've looked at the case and not one toe in the crime scene from one cop? Not one, not a toe, not even a photograph. So you're telling me you're going to go, okay, so where does that leave? We don't have any crime scene evidence. They can be corroborated with the victim. Let's just go with what the victim says, okay?
Okay.
And we have an officer interviewing, or a social worker interviewing a victim or a person that says they were abused, and they don't have the training.
Right.
Or they're just not good enough. They're mediocre.
That's a scary thought.
Okay, so you want a mediocre detective that didn't go to the crime scene, where my client's facing 2 life sentences, okay? And then you have the prosecutor being difficult turning over evidence.
Right.
And then you have a curious investigator that finds out that the officer was terminated twice out of 4 agencies.
Whoa.
Then what do? That's what we're talking about, high stakes.
Yeah.
So when I get these officers' reports, or lack thereof, some of them don't even do reports. Some of them talk to witnesses that were positive for our client and never write it down.
Seriously?
Yep. So I'm getting into a disagreement with the city prosecutor who says, Mr. Bouchard, I've checked you out in the agency where you're at, and they don't like you very much. And I'm going to bring in a witness. And that's the thing about being a city prosecutor. I don't have to tell you who it is. And my response was, and I quote, "Sir, I'm not going to name any names.
Yeah.
But I have it completely documented. Sir, he was a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and I had worked with lieutenant colonels and higher in combat. Never been talked to and disrespected like that.
Unbelievable.
And I told him, I hope you do check me out with the agency, and you're going to find out I was a decorated officer. And then we go from there. You just made yourself a witness to a really interesting investigation. But what I do is I'm like that crocodile in Peter Pan, like this, and I just wait like this.
You're just waiting for Hook to stick it out there, aren't you?
And there's a bird lands on me and pecks me, and I get all these problems from all these cops that don't want to shake my hand. I get pecked and everything, and I'm just sitting there like this. And sooner or later, he's going to slip.
Right.
And right now, with everything going on, it's really interesting about how a lot of officers have been slipping. Their word, not how good of a shot they are, not how fast they can swing their billy clubs or their batons,
Right.
or not how articulate they can write their report, because it doesn't matter if you don't have any honor.
Right.
Okay, and I take that real serious. And the problem is that when you're like that and you just march to the tune of a different drummer as a cop, or march to the tune of a different drummer when you're a contractor, and think outside the box to solve these different things, you'll find out that it always boils down to the most simplest components. You got to have courage, you got to have honor, and you got to be able to do, like, it's called the bell, the book, and the candle. What does it sound like? What will it sound like to the court of public opinion, to the paper, or to the press? What's it going to sound like?
Right.
Probably not good. That's the bell. The book. What does the policy say that you're supposed to do? What does your oath of honor say about why you took the job? Lambs are that way.
Right.
Okay. Sheepdogs. There's a guy named Colonel Grossman, okay, that talks about wolves and sheepdogs. Okay, he's a major influence on me. Okay, Colonel Dave Grossman. He says that there's sheepdogs that look over the flock and they're prepared for the righteous battle, and the wolf comes creeping in to try to get the flock, right? The sheepdog is always there, ever vigilant, always watching, waiting for a righteous battle. Now, if you tell me that we got 100% of police officers believing in that, I'll take out my wallet right now and give you a $100 bill.
I can't say that we do.
Can you say that?
No.
I decline to comment.
Well,
I don't believe that we do.
not a strong
I
yes.
don't
And
think we do.
I say we do. I say we do, and they need to be shaken like this and remember
wake
why
them
they
up.
took the job.
Exactly.
Okay.
Can that be done?
I think it's coming from the top down. You got to have an old school chief, or even one that's flexible enough to understand the technology, because there wasn't a lot of technology back in the
Right.
mid-'90s like there is now.
Right.
There's a lot of spotlight on them. The bell, the book, and the candle.
Wow.
And the candle is, if you shine the light in the darkness right on that cop, and you say, have you done the best that you can in this child sex investigation? Yes. Did you forget to dot this, do this I and cross that T? Yes. Why is that? Here's my schedule. I work 20 hours this day. I work 19 hours the next. And I had to go hug my kid. And I was disoriented because I was tired.
Right.
And I went home. But that's where your partner comes in, the other guy with the shield, and says, and takes it. You have to have communication. It has to be like this, all the way from the top down.
Right.
And right now, we've hit the Titanic. It's the tip of the iceberg right now on in what's going on in the media. It's a Titanic hit.
I've said that.
Right.
Yeah.
With that said, though, how do you feel about how the media is, respecting their own oath of ethics?
The journalistic code of ethics. I'm just a dumb old ex-policeman, but if the police are going to be held to their standards,
True story. Then
I think reporters and the press should be held to theirs, and there should be open communication. And then, by the way, not only that, we have racial tension in the community. We have politicians going like this.
Right.
Okay, I just want to know who's going to stand up and do it. And I've been reading some things about there are some officers that are walking with their communities in the streets. Hey, those are the cops you need to be going up and giving a hug to.
Right.
Right.
They are out there.
And this is what I have to say. I help vets. I use magic.
Right. I think that's so
Music.
cool, by the way. Yeah.
And masters, and when I say masters, I mean badasses. I can't say that during like PC stuff, but I'll tell you right now, I'm recruiting vets that have a story to tell, that have PTSD, that overcome it. I'm talking to people that are innocent people that were in jail for over 9 months, that were totally innocent, that where the charges were dismissed, and now I'm going to go talk to them and find out, hey, how tough was that being in a pod with real sex offenders? How did you get through that?
Don't they suffer PTS, a form of PTS from that as well?
I got to tell you, there's some clients. I mean, if you did 9 months in jail, you're totally innocent, and all of a sudden the charges were dismissed, and they say, oh, by the way, why don't you act normal?
Yeah, come back
That's
into
just like the
society.
opposite.
Pretend that didn't
Right.
happen.
So until we
It's like
get
slapping me in the face and ask me to smile for you.
right, and then when you get out of there, you don't want to exert your civil rights or your privileges to go after them civilly. You just want to
Be left alone.
You just want to be left alone. Your
Right.
faith is gone. Your faith in law enforcement. These are just examples. But I run a special crew of people. They're called dismantlers.
Right.
They have special skills. They're perfect. We sharpen each other as men and women. Some of them are magicians. They can read everybody.
Yeah.
They can pick juries better than any lawyer can.
Right.
Okay. Then I have musicians that are like underdog musicians that play the guitar like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh, wow.
And all they need is that little push like this.
Right.
But if a combat vet were to sit down like this, or a police officer, he would sit down and just listen to the blues. That way his mind doesn't have to think about all that stuff.
Right.
That vet's mind about getting blown up or getting shot at or trying to come home and make sense of things. He doesn't have to think about that. He takes in the music and is moved.
It's called music therapy.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
I actually use that for my autistic son.
That's right. And then
It's
if you show,
incredible how you can set a
them,
routine to that.
Yeah.
To be okay with something that's totally traumatizing to you.
yeah, it soothes
If you
them.
said it, it's absolutely factual.
And then I blow them away. And I'm not talking about shooting vets as cops. Because they shot for us. Let's not shoot them.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay?
What are your, get us back on track, what are your procedures for testimony in court?
Yeah, we've got about a minute and a half
Well,
left.
if I get a subpoena in court, I talk about what investigations I did. And these are past investigations I worked on. I serve the subpoenas to the officers to come and testify, and then I come and testify, and I talk to them about the evidence that they never got. And I testify in court. They ask me all sorts of questions about my background, and I show them.
They don't grill you on the facts that you've dug up.
Oh my gosh, I get cross-examined like you wouldn't believe. And some of the prosecutors are the very prosecutors that I made my career cases with as a cop.
Wow.
I looked them straight in the face. And what questions do you have for me? Because those, especially in the agencies that I've worked at, these DAs have, the district attorneys, the prosecutors know me. I have a reputation of being firm but fair in my investigations as an officer. And now as the defense, I have contacted district attorneys and I said, hey, listen, you need to drop the charges on this guy. He's 100% innocent. And it has happened more than once.
You're an
Wow.
amazing and fascinating man.
And
I
we're
wish
not-
we had
we're
more
not-
time with you.
Say eccentric, but
I agree.
eccentric works,
I
eccentric
describe
works.
myself the same way.
We're talking about doing something on a weekly basis with Pat. So
I'll tell you what, if you give me a crew of people and have me go talk to some of these people that were wrongfully accused, I'd be happy.
I gladly field report with you.
I'll be
Got it.
getting, and we've got other things too that we're going to be doing on a weekly basis too. So keep us in mind, okay? Real people, real life. Right here, we'll be right back.
Real People, Real Life is brought to you by these fine sponsors.
At Economy Motors, we know that everything costs more these days. Gas costs more, utilities cost more, groceries cost more. But what's one thing that will not cost you more? Buying your next vehicle with us. Everything we have is priced $12,995 or under. Bad credit, no worries. No crazy gimmicks and no bait and switch. We keep it real. Economy Motors, home of easy pay. We've got your back.
Don't worry, please, don't worry, 'cause at Economy Motors, we got your back.
Hammond Liquor, home of the coldest beer in town and the lowest prices store-wide. For all your special events, your friends at Hammond Liquor have what you need, from beer, wines, spirits, champagne, and more. Open till 8 p.m. every Sunday. Hammond Liquor, West Kellogg and Tyler Road.
Credit King Auto Sales is getting better all the time. We're doing it better. We're doing it better all the time.
Saving you money big time and saying thank you, Kansas, for making Credit King Auto Sales the #1 buy here, pay here dealer. #1 for sales, service selection, and customer satisfaction. Right now, our summer blowout sale is going on with, get this, 2 years of free gas only at Credit King Auto Sales at the King's Corner, 31st South and Broadway. Go creditking.com.
At Trailer Town, we're all about selection, service, and safety. Trailer Town Selection, hundreds to choose from, small to large, lightweight aluminum to heavy-duty steel, all types, new and used. Trailer Town Service, the best in the Midwest, from wiring to axle repair. Trailer Town Safety, yes, we do Department of Transportation inspections. Trailer Town, trusted, family-owned, 301 West 53rd Street North.